Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hey everybody, welcome to a bonus episode of Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome, and I'm joined today by Team Mothership. They are the Digital Health Student Design Competition winners. On the line today, we have Sofia, Noejovich, Dhivya, Umachandran, and Anna Linden. So hello everybody, welcome to the show.
Hi Nick, nice to meet you.
Nice to have you all on the show. So we're going to get into some questions here, and I figure we can just kind of go around the table here. Sofia, you are the team lead for Team Mothership. I have a couple questions for you. So what I'll do is kind of ask these questions, and we can just kind of go around here. So would you just let everybody kind of know what your background is, how you found Human Factors, what your current position or role is, and what brought you to the Healthcare Symposium this year?
Yeah, so I am an undergraduate industrial engineering student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I work in the Cognitive Systems Lab under Professor John Lee, and I work in the Werner Lab under Professor Nicole Werner. I was brought to the symposium this year for the design competition and also just a general interest in the health and well-being of others and the use of technology to bring well-being to others.
Great. Anna, what about you? What those same questions. What's your background? How'd you find Human Factors? What's your current position, and what brought you to the Healthcare Symposium this year?
Yeah, so my background, Dhivya and Sofia are both undergrads. I'm a first-year PhD student in Dr. Werner's lab, and my undergraduate background is in psychology, and I went to a very liberal artsy school, so I had no idea that industrial engineering existed. But I found Human Factors because I was a couple years into doing psych and kind of realized that I didn't want to go the clinical route and I didn't want to do kind of neuroscience stuff like that. I wanted something a little more applied. And so I ended up doing an internship with the health systems engineering team at Mayo Clinic. And they're all awesome. There are a lot of Badger alumni there. So they kind of got me connected to Human Factors and the Madison program. And then I ended up at Madison. So yeah, it's my first year of the PhD, and working in the lab with Sofia and Dhivya is kind of how we all got to know each other and formed the team and stuff for the competition.
Great. Anything else bringing you to the Healthcare Symposium this year, or just the competition?
Yeah, just the competition, and I didn't even get to go because I couldn't make the presentation. So it's I didn't even get to go. But I went to the one in 2018 in Boston. It was the first time I ever presented a poster. I think was at the Healthcare Symposium. So special place in my heart.
Great. Well, I have a confession too. I was actually unable to make the design competition Zoom call as well. So we'll get into that in a minute. But we also have Dhivya on the line. Would you mind telling our listeners what your background is, how you found Human Factors, what your current position or role is, and what brought you to the symposium this year?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Dhivya. First question is background. So I am a senior at UW-Madison. I'm originally from Chennai in India, but I only lived in India till I was 6, and I've kind of moved around, to Malaysia, the UAE. So I lived in Dubai for the last 10 years and then came to school at Madison to study industrial engineering, and I'm doing a Six Sigma certificate. So that's been fun. A little bit about why I was interested in human factors engineering is I joined the Werner Lab about 2 years ago, which is in the industrial engineering department, headed by Dr. Nicole Werner. And they focus on human factors applications in healthcare. And industrial engineering as a major is really diverse. You have so many different applications: data analytics, manufacturing, healthcare, supply chain, the list goes on. And I was really excited to see how I could have a tangible impact on human life. There's a sense of empathy and kindness that comes with being in a human factors research role that I think I really developed over the last 2 years. and I can definitely see how I'm viewing things through a different lens. So it's been a wonderful 2 years in research. And I think the third question, can you repeat the third question to me?
Third was your current position.
Sure. So I'm a part-time student at UW-Madison, just finishing up school, and I'm also a part-time employee at SPX Flow. I'm going to be joining them full-time in June, but they primarily manufacture industrial process equipment in the food and beverage industry. That's the main sector, but they have applications in other industries as well. So yeah, that's my current, I guess, role. And the fourth question, I know there was a fourth question.
Yeah. Anything else bringing you to the healthcare symposium this year?
Well, Sofia and I actually met as, I think it was sophomores through tutoring it was, and we became great friends, and we worked on some research posters in the past, and then now it's just, hey, this would be really fun to do, and then I got to meet Anna through this, which was awesome. So yeah, all of us met at the lab and, in the industrial engineering department. So that's kind of what brought me to the design competition. I thought it would be exciting to apply it in a different area.
Yeah, so let's talk about the design competition. Sofia, I want to ask you, just give us a little bit more background about the design competition. What is it? Kind of what is the design competition? Let's start there.
Yeah, so the objective of the design competition, I think, was for Human Factors engineers to really brainstorm how we could create technology and design, specifically apps for consumers. So this is for non-healthcare professionals. We're focusing on everyday folks who could benefit from the use of technology, focusing on their personal health. And for the design competition, we each got to focus on a particular facet of health. Our team decided to focus on determinants of health that were established by the National Institute of Health, focusing on individual behavior and social circumstances. So individual behavior being self-efficacy, how people are able to support themselves, and also social circumstances, how people are able to improve their interactions with others. And so that brought us to thinking about supporting working mothers during the pandemic.
Okay, so I guess my question here is the problem space of the design competition kind of fairly broad, or is it narrow with mothers during the pandemic? Like, was that the prompt for this year? Or was that something you guys came up with?
That was a prompt we came up with.
Okay.
So we got to decide which specific group we wanted to focus on. And actually, Dhivya really came up with the inspiration for focusing on working mothers. If you want to speak to that, Dhivya.
Oh, sure. So I think it was November or October, right, when we really started talking about this competition. There was an influx of posts on LinkedIn about working mothers and, the burnout they're experiencing due to the pandemic. And I was also watching that kind of unfold with a lot of, mothers in my own family, right, my extended family, relatives, and so on. And I was actually living with family at the time in Minnesota. She was a stay-at-home mom, the person that I'm referring to, but I kind of saw how care work just isn't given enough credit or importance or validation, and I just felt like we needed to address that, right? And just LinkedIn kind of just reinforced that there's a problem at hand and we need to do something about solving it. So that was kind of the inspiration behind it, just helping mothers cope with managing so many different aspects of their life. There's their health, their kids, their partner, and then the goal in the future is to also make this app more accessible not only to mothers but the stay-at-home parent, the person performing care work in the family. That's the larger goal, but at the time we were trying to narrow the scope because the way society is structured right now, a lot of the time the woman is the one, or the mother in the family is the one taking up the obligation of care work. But we're extremely progressive bunch of people, so we wanted to we want to in the future roll it out, and hopefully people are going to other gender identities are going to take up that role in the future. That's the hope. So yeah, the burden doesn't fall on one section of society.
Yeah. So let's
and
go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say that our the Werner lab that we're all in is really focused on caregiving and patient work. And so that was kind of a space that we were all coming from, is these projects that we've been developing and working on around how to support caregivers and people who do care work outside of institutions like hospitals. And they're often under-resourced and under-supported. And so I think that was also kind of what brought us together as a team initially, was that we knew we had that shared interest in reaching out to caregiving populations. And then the fact that it was women and working mothers was also like not a surprise. It is like definitely an area of interest for all of us, I think.
Yeah, so let's talk briefly about the solution. So the problem obviously is working mothers, caregivers, those demographics. Now, what is the solution to that, right? Like, what have you come up with for this design competition? Sofia, we'll go back to you.
I was messing with the mute button. The emblem of 2021. So I guess I kind of want to take a step back and talk a little bit about how we got to this solution, so that it sort of makes sense how we came up with our final app. But we followed something called the Double Diamond Framework, which is a 4-step process. The first being discovery, define, and then we move into development and deliver. We started really broadly in the discovery phase, speaking to a very wide range of mothers, some with very young infants, some with older children. And we had learned through that research that some of the struggles that mothers were facing was with perfectionism. So a lot of times feeling frustrated that they can't get to all their tasks throughout the day. There was frustration with consolidation of technology and apps. Also with dividing work amongst family members. I had a great quote during one of our interviews where a mother said that running a family should be like running a business, especially during the pandemic. So from that process, we had determined that we wanted to focus on the aspects of health that we could support mothers in. So our app, when you open the interface, the first thing you see is a task allocation page where you can see your schedule for the day, and there's also the ability to allocate tasks to other members of the family. And I don't know if you want to speak more to that attribute, because I know it's something you spent a lot of time working on.
Yeah, so we had a few different themes kind of emerge like from the discovery process with our interviews and affinity diagramming and stuff. So the 3 themes that we tried to tackle with the app were task management, community, and then access to professional resources. And I can speak like briefly about the task management. So the idea was kind of a space where working mothers or parents could see at a glance their tasks, what they had to do for the day, alongside the rest of the family, and so that you have a sense of keeping up to date of what everyone is doing. And then also when you add a new task, you have the option to either add it to your list, add it to someone else's list, or there's an option to kind of auto assign. So you'll put in 2 members of the app and then click auto assign, and the app will auto assign the task to someone who has room in their calendar or has fewer tasks on their schedule for the day. So the idea is to kind of not automatically assume that certain tasks, domestic chores or mealtime tasks would be performed by the mother. When you're auto assigning, you can hopefully, the hope is to take into account actual workload as opposed to subconscious roles. And so the idea is to kind of validate all of those tasks that women have on their plate as actual work that could be performed by any member of the family. And so that's kind of where the task assignment function comes in.
Yeah. Can I ask a little bit more follow up on some of the task management piece, right? Because there's a lot of tasks that parents, mothers have to go through on a day-to-day basis. A lot of them are repeat tasks, something like cleaning up the living room when your toddler throws their Legos all over the place. So is there a way in the app to set up some of those repeat, like every night you got to make dinner, every night you got to clean up the living room or something like that? And then what does that look like from the perspective of the app? Like what happens? So I guess there's two questions here. One, is there repeat app or repeat tasks? And then two, what happens? I know the purpose is to kind of validate all the tasks that a mother has to do, and most of the time is on autopilot. What does that look like when you have sort of that information overload of all these different tasks that you have to do around the house?
Yeah, that's great. So the first question, you can set, you're able to set a due date and you can set it repeating. So you can set it to repeat as often as you want it to. Yeah, and the second question is really good. It's one of the things that we tried to be really intentional about with this app was not treating task management as another chore. So we tried to really reduce the number of steps that the user has to go through in the interface to add a new task and to be able to see everyone's tasks. And one of the ways that we tried to address that was integration with Google Calendar and other external calendars, as well as like Fitbit and Apple Watch. And so the idea is to kind of bring in other management technologies that the user might already be using to keep track of these things, so that they don't have information in all these different places, because I think we all kind of know how that contributes to like mental overload. And so our hope was that the way that people would use the app would be as a way to keep all of that in one place. And then an additional feature was the addition of, what did we call it? I don't even remember, like accomplishments tab, but like.
I was just going to talk about that. Yeah.
Achievements, accomplishments, I don't even remember what we called it. It just has a little star in the app.
Yes.
I remember just the star page, but when you cross something off the task list or you say what to do, it shuffles over to another tab where you can go then see your accomplishments for the day, week, and month. We really wanted to like give mothers a space to actually take in, like, look at how much you are doing and how much you are accomplishing, because sometimes in the day-to-day, you know, it kind of gets lost. And so we wanted to provide a space not only for them to organize, but also to like validate, respect the work that they are doing.
Yeah. I'd also like to add to that. I know there was another part to that. I don't know if this falls exactly under tasks, but we had a start of the day and end of the day feature in our app. So the start of the day feature would let you allot, you know, time for self-care. So whatever that may look like, meditation or maybe going out for a run. And the end of the day would have a list of tasks that you either need to complete or you can swipe to say that you did complete it. It's like a reminder. It serves as a reminder at the end of the day to say that, okay, these are the tasks that you had to do. You know, did you finish them? Serves as a reminder. So that kind of keeps them in the loop. And the point of integrating Fitbit and Apple and a smartwatch feature is to show that, you know, if they make time for exercise, you know, those metrics are being tracked on the same platform and they can kind of access it all in the same place. So it was also, while they're doing their tasks, also thinking about health metrics. Are they taking care of themselves while doing all of this care work, or are they just taking care of people around them? Because with mothers, a lot of the time they're very giving and affectionate, and sometimes they lose track of, you know, okay, I need to sleep and I need to eat and, you know, I need to take care of myself. So that was a huge driver for us.
And go ahead. Just to tie that all back, like full circle. In the beginning, I talked about those attributes of health focused on self-efficacy and on social interaction. I think Anna and Dhivya really beautifully laid out how it brings it back to those core values of we're promoting self-efficacy through accomplishments and validation of work, and also improving social interactions by optimizing how mothers are able to allocate work in their families.
Yeah, so I want to dig into a little bit more about this app. You mentioned the kind of three, I don't know if you want to call them pillars or areas. There was the task management, there was the resources, and I'm forgetting the third one.
Community.
What was that one?
Yeah.
Community.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about maybe like community next and kind of how that played a role in the app design?
Yeah. So I was inspired actually by mural boards I had seen worked on throughout the semester. Our community tab, what it does is it posts a daily message such as, what are you looking forward to for the weekend? And mothers who are using Mothership within their area can post post-it notes with comments, and mothers can post on each other's comment on each other's post-its, and can interact with one another just to reduce any loneliness or isolation that mothers might be facing on a daily basis. This was something that came up in our interviews. So again, promoting a sense of community amongst mothers. It also provides opportunity for mothers to connect with one another. Their Twitter handles are available on their profiles if they choose to have that information. We also have an option for anonymity.
Anonymity.
I think I tripped on that word during our presentation. Just to give mothers that flexibility of, maybe they want the interaction, but they don't want the social media aspect. Just really thinking about preferences that our users might have.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I know that, so we did a little bit of research on that, the society aspect of it, and, people's interactions with their family, friends, coworkers has a direct impact on their well-being. And the whole goal was with the community tab was to create this, safe, positive space in which mothers can interact, just to serve as like a happiness booster and feel like they're not alone in whatever they're doing. And the prompts would kind of help get that conversation going.
Yeah, that all seems like that community aspect really seems critical, especially during times like these where social interaction is very limited. And then, of course, the last one you mentioned was access to some of these professional resources. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I guess I can take that one. So our resources tab has 3 sort of mini tabs within it. There is a page for like articles, which is just kind of a news feed of articles that are aggregated. And some of them are targeted to mothers about motherhood, but there's also an option for you to choose your interests, and the articles that come to you will be based on those interests. And what we really wanted to do with that was provide a space for moms to access information and articles outside of their role as a mother. They have interests related to productivity or yoga, I think is one of them. I'm trying to think like outdoors, like hiking, things like that. So like encouraging them, like, even though this is a motherhood focused app and a lot of the tasks are related to motherhood, there's so much more that of their identity that we want to affirm. And then the other page is professional resources. So access to mental health helplines and counselors in their area, just suggested resources, encouraging them that community is great and self-care breaks are great, but accessing mental health resources is so important during this time too, and destigmatizing that as well, just making it a common feature of the app.
And this was, I think, one of the best parts of our app was this was actually an instance where we got to integrate user feedback into our design. So we did usability testing at the end of the design, and one of the mothers mentioned, or 2 of them, I think, that they loved the resources, but they wanted an ability to search and actually save them so they could refer to them at a later time if they wanted to schedule like a family trip or something. So we were able to integrate that into our design immediately, which is, great to see that.
Yeah. So at this point, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So at this point, I just want to open it up one last time. Anything else that you want any of our listeners to know about this app? And we kind of talked about the 3 main areas. I want to make sure that if there's anything we forgot, we have a chance to address it.
I think just one thing I'd like to add about our problem statement is there's a lot of research right now indicating that the lines between work and family is going to be blurred beyond the pandemic. So after all of us are vaccinated, we're going to find ourselves in these virtual work environments. So we think our app, while it was inspired in supporting mothers during the pandemic, the impact will really move along with those changes in work balance that we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, agree. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today, everyone. Thank you to our group, Team Mothership, for coming on the show and talking about winning the Digital Health Student Design Competition from the Human Factors Healthcare Symposium 2021. I'm going to go around the room here. Dhivya, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to find out more about your research?
Sure, I would say primarily on LinkedIn, but I will, little disclaimer, I am going to be working in the manufacturing sector moving forward, but I know for sure that if I come back into academia, human factors is going to be something that I'd love to, field I'd love to work in, especially, when it comes to integrating that into manufacturing environments, right? We already know they exist with those error-proofing systems, but yeah, definitely, still on my radar. We'll see how that goes. But I'll try to use, my goal is to view things through a human factors lens when I'm working in manufacturing environments, because that is so important. So yeah, I hope to do that, hope to apply it moving forward.
Excellent. Anna, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to keep up with your research?
Yeah, same as Dhivya. I think LinkedIn is the best place. And I'll be doing Human Factors in Healthcare at Madison for who knows how long, however long the PhD lasts. Maybe even in person someday. So that's where I'll be.
They can come find you in the labs over there. All right. And Sofia, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to keep up with your research?
Yeah, so my website is sofianoejovich.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I will be hopefully applying human factors to the technology space. So if anyone wants to ever chat with me about that, let me know.
All right. Well, thank you all for being on the show. At the end of the show, we like to say it depends. That's how we kind of sign off, because in human factors, that's a pretty common answer, and everything depends on something. So I'm going to count us down from 3 on 0. We will say it depends. Ready? 3, 2, 1, 0. It depends.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast Network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.